Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more podcast of the Athletic School. Today, we again have Gustavo here as my partner. So welcome back, Gustavo.
Thanks, Igor.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to say that you are not our guest speaker today. We have someone else more important than you. Um, Lisa Strom is the head coach for the women's golf at Ohio State. She played for Ohio. She was two-time All Big Ten, earned first place at the NCAA East Regional Championship, and then she played professionally for 11 years, competed in more than 50 LPGA. Then she became assistant coach for the Buckeyes, became the head coach for Texas State, where she set 7 program records. Then Kent State, where she stayed there for 2 years and won 9 titles. And now she's back to Ohio State. Thanks so much for being part of the Athletic School podcast, Lisa. And correct me if I said anything wrong about your career.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. And I think, more than anything, it's just exciting to kind of get to talk to you guys about kind of my background, and looking forward to our chat today. But yeah, it's great to be on here.
Nice.
And what a background, right?
Yeah, what a background. It's a lot of stories. Well, so my first question to you is, what the sport of golf means to you? Because I think so many years playing the same sport, I've seen that you read about golf. You don't read about other stuff. I mean, you do read about other stuff, but like I feel like you're always about golf all the time. So what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, the sport of golf really has let me see the world. I've traveled around to all parts of the world. I've been to Asia, South Africa, Europe, and it's all because of a sport that I've learned to love through the years. So, I was introduced to the game by my parents. My dad played at a pretty high level. He played in college. So he was pretty good. He introduced my mom to the game when they started dating. So, it's been kind of part of our family. We've enjoyed family vacations growing up, taking our golf clubs with us. Maybe not your typical kind of family vacation type of deal, but we would find some really sorry little golf courses along the way and have a lot of fun doing it. So I think, when I often look back with very fond memories of growing up and just being around the game and kind of really enjoying it from the start, and not having to learn to love it, or not feeling like it was ever something that was pushed onto me as far as you have to do something. So, and now I having played at the highest level, getting to coach players who want to go there and who dream of playing on the LPGA tour. To me, leading a program to help them through those processes, it's a huge responsibility, and I do take it very seriously. But I really try to dive into using the sport to develop them as people, and not letting the sport use them. So that's a big thing for how I run this program here, and then the culture behind it, because we all know stuff is going to happen along the way. Adversity will happen in a game of golf. You're going to have tough holes. You're going to have poor shots, bad results, but it's how you're going to handle it. So you've got to be prepared for those moments. And just like in life, the same stuff will happen. I look back to 2016 in April, we were cruising along. We had just won the Big Ten championship, and about 8 or 9 days after that, my dad passed away sort of suddenly. He was battling lung cancer at the time, but again, it was a great, true example, real life example to our student athletes, who we were with them on the golf course when I got the call from my mom. And those moments are far more valuable for them to learn from than a score on a scorecard. So I think really what the sport means to me is it's a great vehicle to help develop those players that are in front of us on a daily basis in a really important time in their life.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then my next question for you is, how was the path for you to become professional? You mentioned about, going for trips with your family, playing all the time, but like, what does it take to become a professional? What did it take for you to become a professional player?
Yeah, 20 years ago it was a little different as far as the level of play. I think the LPGA Tour is much deeper and much more talented now. But as I was going through my college years here at Ohio State, I had great coaching. That was one of the reasons I came to Ohio State, I wanted to be playing for a coach that had experience playing on the LPGA tour and knew what it was like to get there. I was not, someone that was highly recruited. I didn't play in a lot of AJGA events. I, played in just a handful of those, not even, played in a lot of like local PGA events, and just really was competitive kind of where I was. But, for me, as I navigated college and got better, about 2 years into my college career, I realized I wasn't traveling much, and I didn't like it. So I knew I had to get better, and I think that was one of the things where I took the onus upon myself. I didn't transfer that blame to someone else. Oh, she's not picking me to go. She doesn't like me. Or, I really realized, like, if I play better, I'm going to travel. Golf is a very kind of black and white sport. If you're shooting the scores, your coach is going to take you. So I dove into my golf after my second year in college. I redshirted my first year, didn't play any tournaments, and then played one event that sophomore year. So after that year, I really realized I needed to work harder. I needed to dedicate myself more to improving. So throughout that summer I did, and came back and won the qualifier that fall for our first trip, and then never missed a tournament after that. And, that really instilled in me the value of that hard work and discipline. When I put my mind to something, I was able to achieve it, and started to see my progression. So, leading into kind of my last year in college, I had a couple of coaches, even as we were at tournaments, like, hey, you're doing great, and you probably have what it takes to play at the next level. So when you start to get people that believe in you from the outside and seeing it, it starts to build your confidence. And I took that next step after graduation, and went to Q school pretty much straight out of when I finished that summer. I finished actually the summer of my 5th year. I stayed as long as I could in college. Turned pro and went to Q school and made it to the final stage of LPGA Q school that year. And, did I have a successful career? That's a I guess a question up for debate. But, I think at the end of the day, I learned a lot about myself, and I know that my experiences playing professionally, I didn't win major championships. I did win tournaments, state opens, stuff like that. But you look back and it's not about that money. It's not about, who you beat or where you were and all that. It's really about a lot of relationships you made, the people you got to know, and then being able to apply those lessons later and sharing those stories with other people.
So Lisa, just going back a little bit to your college career, you said that in the 2 first years you didn't play a lot, and you needed to work harder. In comparison to the other people that were with you, what did you do different that made you like come from a player that wasn't traveling a lot, from like becoming professional? What did you do different in your routine, or different than the other players didn't do, that kind of make you stand up from them?
Yeah, that summer was a big summer for me. I stayed with a friend of mine up in Massachusetts. Called my parents, and I was like, she's working at this golf school. She was the head pro where I was in high school, and she had taken a job up in outside of Boston. And I called my mom and dad, and I said, look, like, I want to do this. Like, I don't want to have to work in the summertime and try to feel like I'm making a little bit extra money so that I can, afford having my car and stuff like that. Do you guys, support me in that? And my dad was like, absolutely. So I think it took me the realization of like, hey, this is on me to decide and to set my mind to performing better. But yeah, that summer, I mean, pretty much it was more time on task. I really I helped them set up the golf schools in the morning. That was kind of my little deal of like, hey, if you help us, you can go use the facilities all day while we're teaching the golf schools. And so I'd set up in the morning, and I'd help them break it down in the evenings. But in between that, I was on the golf course, a little pit stop for lunch maybe along the way. And, I spent more time doing it. And it wasn't maybe that I changed a lot of like what I was doing, or my golf swing it evolved over time, but the focus was much more about just, we got to get our hands dirty and get to work.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the kind of example that we like, because sometimes we see like freshmen that are super talented, and of course we have something to learn from them. But like those stories where you don't play a lot, and then at some point you realize that you got to change something, and then your mind changes, and then you grow from there, and then
maybe in your last year, you become what you want to be. And then those people, like, they tend, in our experience, in our small experience, they tend to keep growing. That's a very nice story from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I shared a lot with our student athletes because, I didn't even come in here on like a full scholarship. I was on tuition and books and fees. This was about, 2/3, like 63 or 65%, whatever. And I've worked my way into more scholarship money. And I think sometimes kids, when they're selecting schools and stuff, they're looking more at just what's the offer. But I saw it as more of an investment of like, hey, if my family can, financially afford covering my room and board for those years, I know I'm going to get a lot more out of my experience here at Ohio State under Therese, as my coach, than I would getting a full ride somewhere else. And, saving my family money. But, to me, it was more important to have the experience here with her. So, I think we all have those moments in time though, where the light bulb goes off and like, we know we got to do something different. So that was it for me, for sure.
No, awesome. Yeah, I was gonna mention what Gustavo said about that turning point because I think that's so important. And then I was gonna ask you how you do to teach your players nowadays because I'm pretty sure that you have players that they are not doing it as good as they think, or and maybe they think it's your fault. It's not their fault. But it takes a while to understand that. So, what are some of the lessons that you learn as a player in college, in professional sports that you try to pass to them nowadays?
I think, that like I touched on a little bit earlier with our value comes from who we are, not what we do. In golf, it's so easy to attach your value to a score. I mean, it's very public, it's put on a scoreboard, used to be put in a newspaper, now it's put online everywhere. So, you're always measured against other people with what you shoot. And it's very easy to get wrapped up into thinking that your value is simply your score. So I do a really good job of trying to make sure that they understand, let's learn from these experiences, good or bad. You might shoot 65. Let's learn from that too. Like what got you into those zone moments, and let's journal about it. We're big into the mental training aspects of things. I journaled a lot when I played. I look back, I still have a lot of my journals from my professional playing days. And I look back and think, wow, like, look how much I learned. And we think we can remember so much more than we actually can. So by writing it out and having it, even as I'm talking to you, I have notebooks full of stuff. So, I think, again, showing them what they can learn from themselves is a huge part of it. It's not always seeking out information from other people. It's like diving into yourself and kind of turning inward sometimes and finding those keys that unlock your performance. Certainly when players are struggling, you try to give them those tools to equip them to manage it. But they've got to experience it too. And I think sometimes we're too protective as coaches. We want to help them avoid the struggle, but actually you learn a lot more during that struggle. So I always remind them, like, don't be afraid to like have a tough day. We have survived all of our toughest days.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing for me. And then just really enjoying it, right? Like our college experience goes quickly. So I try to remind them too, like, even the days that don't seem that great, they're really great right now for you in college. You don't have a lot of worries, and you got a bright future ahead of you too. So take advantage of what we've got around here.
Awesome. And I think what you said applies to our sports. I play soccer, Gustavo plays volleyball, and it's more like team sports. But I like what you said about it's kind of going within, and go deep in yourself and seeing what you can do. It's not necessarily about what the other people in your team can do. Sometimes we are the problem, and it's hard for us to figure that out.
The self-awareness of
Yeah.
like, in a sports team, it's easier to say, oh, he's not doing something good. Like the coach, this practice is not very good. Could have been better. But like having this self-awareness of, oh, I can help more this way. I can do more for the team somehow. And then it's very hard to get at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And owning your 20 square feet is a big thing, right? Like proverbially speaking, like your 20 square feet is what you've got to be in charge of. And you're not in charge of Gustavo, and you're not in charge of Igor, and but you've got to own what you've got to handle, so that it is, as you come together as a team, that you're working together, but you've got to manage what you're in charge of and what you're responsible for and what you can control. I think a lot of, in our individual sport as golf is, we still perform as a team on the golf course. We still count the 4 scores out of the 5, and you're still trying to make sure that you're playing for your teammates, but you still got to manage yourself so that the team can perform at a higher level.
And going a little deeper about that, as a coach, how is your approach to your athletes? Like, because you guys compete as a team in an individual sport, kind of. And so, like, how do you approach them? Like, do you treat them equally, or they have their own differences, and then you try to deal with their own differences? So how that works for you?
Yeah, it's certainly unique, right? Every person's got their layers. So we're, I like to say that I'm fair with how I treat people. And I always remind them that they're going to get out of it what they put into it. So, if you've got a kid that's working really hard and willing to come in and do extra, or willing to say, hey, coach, can you help me with this? Like, as a coach, you're going to gravitate towards helping them more. And if you've got a player that kind of is on their own, and I'm going to manage myself and I'm going to do it on my own, then you're going to give them that freedom too. But I would say, definitely managing all the different personalities is a fun part of the job. Getting to know what makes them tick is really important. Getting to build the trust between you as a player and a coach. I'm certain, in team sports, it's very similar. But we still think of ourselves as a team, as a big unit. But individually, again, what am I going to do as a coach to bring out the best in them each day? And there's certain kids that you can maybe push their buttons a little bit more. Usually you have built in a little bit more trust with them, but how do you build trust? You're around them. You can't just simply substitute showing up and kind of being a face. You've got to actually be around them and among them. Like, a good example, last week we were in California, and some of the girls wanted to go to Santa Monica Pier. Like, as a coach, like, I don't know, like, it wasn't maybe the top priority of my experience out there, but we needed to kill some time, and we weren't going to play till later that day. So they had a blast, and they're going to look back on that and be like, wow, coach took us, we had a good time. We were laughing, we were joking, we were walking around there, and again, it just all leads towards building that trust. So then once you have the trust, you could start to push. And I'm sure you can look at your coaches that you've had and say, like, wow, the more I trusted that coach, the more I allowed him or her to push me, maybe more than a previous coach that you'd had. So, I think that's the biggest part. And then looking back at these relationships that you build once players graduate and they're moving on to other areas of their life and different endeavors that they want to chase. It's amazing how you still have that connection and keep in touch with them. And that's the beauty of it. In 40 years from now, I want kids to look back and say, hey, because I went to Ohio State and played for Coach Strom, like, I'm a better person, and I am still connected to that program. I'm still connected to what she's doing. So that's a big part of why I get up in the morning. It's a big part of why I do what I do now. I never knew coaching was going to lead me down this path, or that coaching was really even in my future. But as my playing career came to an end, I soon realized the importance of what coaches do on a daily basis and help a lot of kids. So, I've seen kids go through some really tough times too, and to see them come out on the other side and to know that you've had a major impact in their life in that way, far beyond any wins on a golf course and tournament wins as a team, like, those are really special moments.
Awesome. Yeah. And we have been studying coaches and success in sports for a long time. And like we see that as a common thing with the coaches that we have studied, like the trust that they have with the players, the trust that they do, and everything that they do, like, is not necessarily questionable, because
it's almost something divine, like, his word is going to be listened and executed because
there is that trust there. You don't need to explain everything, why and this, why and that. They already know, right? So yeah, that's awesome. And then when you were when you were the coach for Texas State, you guys set many different records there. So what what did it take for you guys to set all those records? It was a hard work, was luck, was teamwork? What are some of the skills that you guys did there that you could have those great results?
Yeah, I think, when I got out, when I was hired there as the head coach, there was a certain culture there that it was kind of okay to just be mediocre. Um, that was the sense that I got as I started to meet some of the players. And so they started to kind of learn that there was going to be a higher standard of hard work there. And then we were going to push them a little bit further beyond what they had originally thought maybe they came to college to do. Certainly hard work and luck. Luck is involved in most sports. You get good calls, you get bad calls, you get good bounces, you get bad bounces. So I never try to say it's all just hard work. If hard work was the answer for everything, everyone would work hard and they'd be really good at things. But there is luck along the way. But I think the culture sort of shifted. We started to get kids in there that, they were competitive. They enjoyed being around the game. They enjoyed the game of golf. You've got to have kids that really love it. 20 hours a week by what we can require for the NCAA is a big thing, but you've got to have kids that want to do a bit more and they want to push themselves to see how good they can be. So I think we had to kind of redefine what success was, in our program there. Winning wasn't always winning tournaments. Winning for us, I look back at some of the fall season, we play a really tough schedule at Texas State, and every fall we played a tough schedule. And I think we beat like one team the entire fall season. And I, even after the first tournament, I was like, wow, this could really beat you up. Like, this could really make you question, like, what are we doing I can imagine being a student athlete, even like, why are we even going to these tournaments? So we really had to start to redefine, like, hey, success on the golf course for us as a team looks different than maybe what our competitive, other teams that we were competing against, I guess, in tournaments would be doing. So, a big thing for us was keeping them engaged, being competitive in the classroom, starting to have that bleed over to the golf course was important. Journaling, looking again within themselves. We worked on a lot of mental training stuff, and we started to kind of teach them a lot of skills, time management stuff. Hey, I'd walk them through like your typical day, and they this is a little bit of a time management technique that I learned from a friend of mine, but basically you have these 15-minute blocks throughout the day. And as you start to use them, you have 96 15-minute blocks. And like, where are you using your time? Like, you're saying you don't have any time to come out and practice anymore. So let's see, do you not have time, or are you using it elsewhere? So all of a sudden, one of the girls was filling it out. She started, okay, I sleep 8 hours and that's this many blocks and this, and then social media comes in and, oh yeah, I'm wasting a lot of time on Instagram. And okay, she's like, Coach, I'm out of blocks. I'm like, great, we haven't even gotten to golf yet because of where they were spending their time. So it was a big shift in their mindset. And they soon realized, that if they wanted to do better on the golf course, which is really why you were there, right? Like you do want to be competitive, that they needed to kind of shift what they were actually doing throughout their day. So stuff like that started to kind of kick in. We got some good players in there. That really made an impact, and winning's contagious. And as soon as you win a little bit and you start to see some success, they want more of that. We got to light the victory star, which was a huge thing. And then even at Kent State when we would ring the victory bell. So I think celebrating those moments are huge, because in golf, really in collegiate golf, you don't win a ton. As much as we did win at Kent State a lot, like, that's kind of not the norm usually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. Yeah, I like how you mentioned about changing that culture, because I think that can be a big problem for many different programs around the US and many teams around the world, because sometimes it's just the culture, it's not the people that are there. I mean, of course the people do the culture, but like you came in and you changed the culture, and so I think that was awesome. So do you think luck and hard work are connected in some way, or they are two different things?
Yeah, I think there's like an old adage that maybe Gary Players is credited for saying that the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's probably very true. You know, I think when you start to stack the deck in your favor and you do the right things on a daily basis over time, because you can't just sit here and, you know, Brian Kite's a great mentor to me. He's really helped to kind of shift. It's the E+R=O behind me, but he's really helped me shift my mindset a bit on things. And it takes time. You know, even me taking over at Texas State or Kent State, like you can't just waltz in there and kind of impose your will on 9 or 10 players that are staring back at you because they didn't expect you to be their coach, you know, and you've got to really take time to shift things and to build that trust again. But, you know, I think a big thing with within a program though is the more you're willing to kind of sacrifice for each other, you start to see that feeds off of each other. That begins to feed into, you know, success on the golf course. And the more you emphasize them taking the lead, I even think back to, again, this California trip, like I was putting them on the spot of like, you plan the day, like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Where are we going to eat? And then, well, I don't know. You want them to make those decisions so that they've got ownership in it and they feel like they've got a piece of the pie, you know, and I think it's important to give them that, because if, you know, if a coach is simply just telling them what to do all the time, if you're not around, they're really not going to know what to do. So I really try to give them that ownership. And, you know, I think at the end of the day too, like when you've got healthy boundaries with your players and they understand like, hey, that's the edge, you know, let's keep it between these lines. But wow, okay, if I can have a lot of fun in between these lines or within this box, but if I get outside the box, like it should be uncomfortable for them. You know, if you've got players that are doing the right things, they should be rewarded within your program. I'm a big believer in that. And then if you have kids that kind of start to bounce outside that box, like we can't fit everybody, you know, that's not meant to be for everybody. It should be competitive culture. It should be tough and it should be demanding. But you can have a lot of fun when you get people on the right page.
Yeah, because like winning is fun, right?
Yeah.
Winning is a lot of fun. Yes. And I think you have to remind people of that sometimes. Like people think it's such hard work and it's such drudgery. Like it's, oh, I show up again and do it again. But that's like, ultimately winning is a lot of fun too.
And it's worth it, you know, all the work that you got to put in, like it's worth it. Awesome.
But if it took 2 to 3 years, like you have to understand, like it sometimes is, you know, that part of our culture right now, and it's probably been going on for years and years, like hundreds of years, thousands of years. But you know, I think we're all kind of products of this instant world, and we want it now. Even as coaches, we want players to improve immediately, and we've got to be willing to put the time in and delay that gratification so that we can enjoy that process and understand like that is the beauty of it.
And awesome. Igor say something a lot, that being a winner is very unfair, because if you win today, like tomorrow you're not a winner anymore. If you want to win again, you gotta work harder and harder. So
you can own a winning, you know, it's a rent that is due every day. So it's that you got to work for every day. And
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. The other day, Gustavo mentioned like, oh, sometimes you go to the gym, you know, you're going to start working out, and then you go to the mirror and you don't see any changes, you know, and that's kind of what we want as well. And that's not really how things work. So yeah, I think having that self-awareness that we were talking before, it's really important to like, okay, I just got to keep working. And the day that you give up, it might be the day that you would succeed, you know, so it's pretty tricky. So I have seen that you post a lot about books. You had a challenge a couple months ago, I think. Do you like to read? Do you read a lot?
I do read a lot. Yeah. So about probably a year and a half into coaching, we had won the Lady Buckeye, and it's our home tournament. And I'd gotten back to my apartment that afternoon and sat down on the couch, and I was like, so this is it. Like just sitting there by myself with my own thoughts. And I'm like, this is it. like we just won. We had been waiting to win, like we'd been working so hard at it. We finally won. And I'm like, this was really unfulfilling. And I really felt empty. And I thought, wow, here I am, coaching this program back at my alma mater. What could be better? You won your home tournament and you feel so empty. So I'm like, there's something missing. So Joshua Metcalf, who I kind of randomly found on Twitter, he and I had gone back and forth. We had a couple good conversations. I had listened to a few of his, interviews or podcasts, and he probably was very instrumental in my development as a coach at that time, and really learning to look inside and really figure out what I was all about. So I read Burn Your Goals. I read Mindset by Carol Dweck, Legacy by James Kerr, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and so it led me down this road. Wooden on Leadership was another great one. But I probably read in that time, in about a year and a half time, between 50 and 60 books. And again, it wasn't just to consume information, but it was like, what resonates with me? What I was trying to figure out, like my coaching, my philosophy, what is important. And so through that journey and through kind of just transforming myself, I was starting to realize how important and impactful it was for the student athletes that were around me. We would travel and they'd see me carrying a book, or they'd see me reading on my Kindle. Hey, coach, what are you reading now? And then I was like, wow, they really do pay attention. And so again, it started to kind of have a trickle down effect on the kids around me. They noticed that I was, putting a little more effort into the gym, and not only transforming, my mind, but my body too. And, it led to greater levels of trust and connection with the players, which always is a great thing. And we went on to win 3 Big Ten titles in a row, played great at regionals, went to national championships, and, at the end of the day, I think a lot of that I look back on, had we won and I felt like, oh, this is why we do it. And it was very transactional. I probably would have never learned as much as I have about myself as a coach. So, and I think books are great, but you've got to learn to digest it, not just read them and go on to the next one. Like, how are you applying maybe those lessons? And then I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Brian Kite, I kind of referenced him. He had a daily discipline podcast. He emails on a daily basis, a daily discipline email, which is fantastic because it's maybe a 2-minute read. Coach McGraw does a great podcast called Better Than I Found It. And Dr. Brett McCabe has been truly instrumental just in my development as well as a coach, and putting such an emphasis on mental health. I think in this day and age right now, it's so important to really, as a coach, be aware of all that. So he's become a great friend and mentor as well. So I just, I think it's, if we're not always learning and we're not always growing, how can we expect our student athletes to have that same mindset of growth mindset? We've got to do it ourselves too.
Awesome, that's cool. And
He's skin in the game, right?
Yeah, of course. And see, it's possible to read more because Gustavo read but doesn't read that much as like you. But that's awesome. And yeah, having the skin in the game is the most important thing. Like it's hard for athletes, like for us as student athletes. Like why should I do something that I know you are not doing as a coach? You are just telling me to do, like you don't even know. So yeah, having the skin in the game, I think that's one of the most important things. Our last question that we always like to ask our guest speakers is how you define success.
Yeah, and for me, success is such a broad term, but as a coach, for me to define success, it's bringing out the best in those around me. Whether that means that player's gone on to win on the LPGA tour, win a Big Ten championship as a team, winning, a Big Ten or regional or national championship. Am I bringing out the best in them every day? Am I showing up to make sure that it's not my agenda? It's, hey, what are we doing together? So pushing people to achieve things beyond where they currently think they can and believe that they can, shifting that mindset. So to me, success can have a lot of different definitions as far as each person might define it. one kid might be just trying to travel and get into the lineup and be the fifth man, whereas another player is going to Augusta to play in the Augusta National Women's Amateur. And so you've got to balance that and understand that each individual in front of you has different hopes and dreams, but honoring those and making sure that you're giving them the environment to succeed within that. So I really think success is a huge term, but defined individually. It's being the best you can every day.
Mhm.
And that's a high standard.
Yeah, it is. It's not that easy. Yeah, and we brought it here, Lewis Carrallo from Georgia Tech, and he mentioned something similar to what you said. It's like if you're doing your best, if you are waking up every day early to go do extra reps or extra work, but people around you are not doing that. If you're not bringing them with you, it's I wouldn't say that that's useless, but it's kind of like, okay, so why you doing only for you, So
We're
like,
changing like maybe 1% of our
yes.
team.
So like, you gotta bring those people with you too. So yeah.
Yeah, my friend Brian Kite talks a lot about the mountain of average. So 80% are kind of in that middle mountain, the middle part, and you have about 10% are on the elite side, and then 10% are kind of on the side of the mountain that aren't going to be even average. They're kind of not even pulling any of the weight of the team. But it's imperative and important for those elite players to pull someone with them to get people moving in the direction of that upper 10%. Because the more you can have moving in that direction, might not get there. They might get to that elite status, but at least they're working their way towards that. And you think of it in broad terms of a football team with 100 players or a golf team with 10. You kind of have that similar ratio of about 8 players are kind of in the middle. One might be on the far left where they're struggling and not really caring. And then you have that one elite player. So how can you move and shift the mountain of average in the right direction? So yeah, if you're not really helping and here to, like, I think of it this way too, like when I'm gone from this earth, I want people around me to have had a better experience because they spent time with me. So that's a big thing for me.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. That's a legacy that we want to leave. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, that's it. Just
all right.
Thank you for
thanks for everything. One last thing. Next week on Monday, we're starting a challenge. It's called the Get Uncomfortable Challenge. So we can get out of our comfort zone, So do something different or the same thing uncomfortable that makes you uncomfortable for 7 days, and then you are more than invited to be part of that challenge. We just ask you to post in your social media and tag us, use the hashtag. We're just trying to get more people to participate and get uncomfortable, get out of the comfort zone. So like we're planning to go out and run like 5 a.m., maybe doing an ice bath afterwards, or but something different every day, or the same thing. For some people would be reading, for some other people would be working out every day if they don't work out, stuff like that. So feel free to join us.
I love it. That's awesome. That's really cool. And I'll definitely find that on social media and in your pages. And I'll sort out something for 7 days. No problem.
Sounds good. Yeah, and thank you so much again, Lisa, to be willing to talk with us. It was an awesome talk, and I hope people can get something out of it, and I'm pretty sure that they will.
Oh, it was a great conversation.
Yeah,
because sure they have a lot to learn with this podcast.
We started because we wanted to talk to people like you and learn for ourselves, but then we thought, okay, maybe it's selfish if we don't share with other people, So I'm pretty sure that people will take something out of it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you both. Just to acknowledge the work that you guys are doing. It's fantastic, and to share those messages of coaches that aren't necessarily always high level top Division I NCAA coaches. I think there's just so many people out there that have great messages, and we can learn a lot from those people. So keep up the great work and what you're doing, and figuring out kind of high performance stuff. I think it's fantastic that you're sharing it and spreading the word too.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Elisa.
Thank you.